This is the Jpeg2RAW podcast. I'm Mike Howard. I'm broadcasting from the basement of Nav Studios here in sunny and hot Atlanta. Jpeg2RAW is a photography podcast for the amateur photographer. You can find us on the web at www.navstudios.com, and you can contact the show by emailing us at podcast@navstudios.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter by searching for Jpeg2RAW, or just follow the links on our website. All right, before we have any more interruptions or any more craziness, let's go ahead and get started. This is Jpeg2RAW, show number 18, I believe. If not, I'll have to correct that later on. But had a busy, crazy holidays. The house was still jumping with a lot of people, and even with a sign on the door that says "Do not enter" in big bold letters in a shut door, we've still had some interruptions and people walking in. So we're going to try and get through this pretty quick. It'll be a quicker than normal show, but tonight, as I've said before, I have a special in-studio guest, and I wanted to get this show done while I had this person available to do in-studio, and my studio is not designed for in-studio guests, so we're going to have to make do with what we have here. But tonight I have my mom, who's here visiting for Thanksgiving, and we're going to go over and talk to some of her photos and talk to her about what she does. So how you doing, Mom?
Doing good. Michael's turkey was delicious. He fries some really good turkeys for Thanksgiving.
Yes, and I haven't had dinner yet, so I think I'll have some turkey when we're done here. But as you're looking in Skype, we haven't got it quite right, but you can see her there. She is actually in studio, so if I reach over somewhere, let's see, there we go. Now you can see we are in the same room together. But Mom, I want you and I were talking a while back about how you got into photography, and what got you interested in it, and how you got back into it. Because of course back when you were younger, there wasn't digital photography, and you really weren't into it. But you have in the last, what would you say, 5-10 years really gotten into it.
Right.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got back into it?
Well, how I got into photography actually is from Michael, my son. When he got his first digital camera and was taking pictures, there was one of his pictures especially that inspired me. He had taken a picture of his son at one of the ball games, and I just fell in love with that picture, and it made me think that I wanted to do that too. So I wanted a digital camera. Because before I only took pictures, when as the kids were growing up, their birthday parties, and it was in a little cheap camera, and I just wasn't into photography. But Michael kept doing things with his camera. After that, the first camera, he got a better camera, and he was doing things that were impressing me. And then he joined a photo group online, and one of his water photos.
Water drop photo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the first image you were talking about was the one I took with my very first digital camera. It was a Fuji 2400 or something like that, and it was a simple little picture of my son and his friend in the dugout of their t-ball league, and both of them had put their baseball caps on their head, and it was a picture from behind. And actually, by mistake, by no design, it actually came out pretty good.
Right.
It was one of my favorite photos, and I think that's the one you're talking about.
Yes, it is. It is.
And then the next one you're talking about is the water drop, and that's where I had. It's pretty cool, and something we probably should go over more in depth in the future. But it is where I've taken a water drop, like a nose drop or something like that, and drop water into a bowl. In this case, it was a blue bowl, and you use flash to freeze that drop when it hits the water. And it's, there are some easier ways to do it, but I just did it trial and error. Drop water, hit the flash. Drop water, hit the flash. And you can, over time, get some really It's
Interesting
amazing,
shapes.
interesting shapes, and it's amazing what that flash, how it can stop that action. You will not, shutter speed alone will not do it. It's got to be that flash that does that. So yeah, go ahead. And I'm showing some of your pictures as we talk.
Oh, okay. Um, but seeing him on that photo site and him putting his picture up and getting all these great comments, and it was like picture of the day or so of the week or the month or something like that. I thought, oh, that looks like a good idea. So I joined that photo group online. And from that, you start getting inspiration because you start seeing pictures, you start seeing objects and things from somebody else's eyes. You know, the level that they take when you get down on the ground and take a picture of a dog that's on the ground or a flower or what have you. But you get inspiration here and there and you just start seeing things differently.
Yeah, and that's the thing about your photography because we're so different in what we photograph.
Right.
A lot of my photography has been sports,
Right.
and now I'm getting more into landscape, and you do a lot more abstract stuff. Although what we looked at so far has been people. I'm going to try and find,
Yeah,
you know,
the flower right here that's up right now, the yellow flower.
right,
This is one of my favorite things to photograph.
yeah,
Is in natural light. It was early morning, and the light was coming through like the forest. And I love things like that. I love my macro lens.
and then you do all of these with no tripod, right?
Right.
Which I've tried and tried and tried to encourage you to use a tripod. And my hands are not always that stable, but yours are even less stable than
Right.
mine. So I'm not sure how you even get what you get, but it seems to be a losing battle for me to convince you to use a tripod.
Well, you know what they say. If you take a lot of pictures, at least one of them's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that you photograph a lot of is hummingbirds, and I'm trying to find some here. Do you have any?
They're a little bit further
Okay, so maybe
down the line.
we'll eventually get to those.
They were the first ones that I had in the group, so they're going to be the last ones that you're going to get to. I love close-ups. You see the cat, and so
Yeah,
that's
so like this cat. Let's talk about this cat picture now. You have this one up. Is this a macro lens that you're using to shoot this?
it probably was my 105. Yes, it probably was. It could be the 400, the 80 to 400,
Okay.
because I use those mostly.
Yeah. And you were shooting with a D90 and a D70, right?
Right.
Nikon, both Nikon.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I started off with the Olympus 3000.
Which is a point and shoot. Yeah.
Right. And then Michael kept saying, Mom, if you really want to get into photography, you need an SLR. So when I bought the first one, which was the D70, and of course, every picture that I took was absolutely horrible. I hated the camera because I hadn't learned how to use it yet. But
Yeah, that's something when you first get a DSLR that they're not. So in some ways, you think, oh, these are really good because you probably are getting depth of field, that blurring of the background that you wouldn't have got with a point and shoot.
Right.
So that you like, but the quality is not right where you think it should be. It's just not as good, and that's because you really, with a DSLR, have to do some post processing.
yeah.
Yeah. You have an eye for good photos. So we're looking at now just what's something simple, just somebody with water dripping out of their hands that I probably would not have thought of taking that photo, but actually it looks pretty good. I like that.
Thanks. That's Ariel and one of my grandchildren. And I love taking things of that nature, zeroing in on something because I like macros and I like close-ups. That's just
Well, there's I don't know the exact rule, but there's a general rule of the things in your photograph, there should be a reason for them to be in there. And like when you zoomed into her hands, you've eliminated all that stuff on outside and you don't have any distractions. So the image is more powerful, I think, because you don't have all those distractions.
I agree. I love shallow depths of field. That's something that really appeals to me.
Yeah. This one is definitely shallow depth of field, which is your lizard, which I imagine you're using your macro lens.
Yeah. Either the macro or the 400. And actually, I've turned the picture because he's on a post on my porch. He's on a supporting post on my porch. We have a lot of lizards around our house. You know, we live in South Louisiana, so
Yeah.
most of my pictures are actually taken in my yard, and like this one's on my front porch, and so I just turned it.
Yeah. And the one that's about to come up here is the water technique we were talking about earlier. So we're talking about some things that we come to later, so we might have to come back on them. But this is that technique we're talking about, where you imagine you're doing the same thing I did. Is you've got just a little water. What would you call that? An eyedropper. Little eyedropper with water in it. You hold it outside the frame. You drop it into this little bowl of water. In this case, you're probably using a blue bowl.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
To make the water blue. Otherwise, it'll be clear.
Well, I put blue.
You put blue.
Drops. Yeah.
And you put blue dye in the water.
Yeah.
Okay, blue food coloring. Yeah, that helps too. And then what stops the action is the flash.
Right.
The flash is what's stopping the action, not the shutter speed.
And in this particular shot right here, I have a black cloth, velvet, not velvet, not the shiny one, the other one that's not shiny.
Matte black or something like that.
Yeah. I put that on something behind it.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with those is not to get the reflection from overhead, because I'm doing it inside.
Yeah.
But those are a lot of fun. But I do have to use a tripod for these.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about. Let's spend a little bit of time on this one, because what you're doing is you have the thing on tripod, but how are you releasing the shutter? You're not on video. So you're fine. You have a remote?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, and that's how I do it too. I have a remote. And it's very fun to try. It can be frustrating because you got to get that timing down. But you end up with something like this, either where it plops out of the water, comes out of the water. Sometimes you can, if you release multiple drops, you can get multiple drops in the scene.
Right.
Or you get what looks like a crown, where the indentation where it goes in the water.
That's what's extremely hard to get.
Yeah.
And you've got some pretty crowns.
I've got several of those, yeah.
And I've never been able to get a crown, a decent crown, on a control one like this.
Yeah. But they're fun to try and pretty easy. You just need a flash there, and getting the background the way you did. That's pretty good too. Now here's another one of the water shots. And in this one, you got the separation. You got the drop that are separated. Yep. I like that one too.
I learned that from you, Mike. And that one.
You want to go back to that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about that one.
Yeah.
That's taken from just the light coming from the window, and what I used for the background was my robe. I put that on the curtain and hung it in front of the window, and so you're getting that bright morning sunlight coming through that.
Yeah.
And so that's how that one.
Another one of your favorite topics are birds.
Yes, I love the challenge of bird shots.
This is a good one. So this must be your 400 millimeter lens.
Yes.
So
almost all my birds are shot with my 80 to 400.
And the 80 to 400 is not a f2.8 lens. I mean, most of the time when you hear about a 400 millimeter lens, you're thinking about a humongous thing that's on the sidelines of an NFL game that costs $9,000. But this is a Nikon 80 to 400. I think it's a VR lens, which means it has the vibration reduction,
which really helps me because it's handheld.
Yeah. And do you know the f-stops on that thing? Do you know?
It starts off with 4.5.
Oh, so it changes as you zoom in.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm never at 4.5 because I'm always out to 400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're at whatever focal length, are you actually stopping it down even further, or are you going, going wide open?
You taught me, because when I first was doing it, 5.6 was not sharp enough. So you said go up. And so I usually shoot at 6.3.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that even with fast glass, even with your 50 millimeter f1.8 lens, that none of the glass really perform that well wide open at their lowest aperture. So unfortunately, you got to stop all of them down, and of course, the higher it is to start with, at 5.6 lens means you got to go even further with it. Now, you are getting vibration reduction, so that helps you a little bit
Yes.
with that. But like this image looks perfectly sharp.
I love that.
And
This is a tuft tit mouse.
yeah, and the thing that's awesome about the 400 is how it blurs the background.
Oh, I
I
love
mean,
that's my favorite because I love that buttery blurred
yeah,
background.
and you can see that in this image that background is just completely blurred out. And it's really smooth. I don't know what was back there.
The fence.
The fence?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fence back there. It really
That's what's
smooth.
giving it the brown color because the fence is,
Yeah,
your natural wood and
it really gave it a nice smooth look. And here's your favorite, isn't it?
yeah, my
So
hummingbirds.
so Jill, my wife, is ecstatic whenever we get two hummingbirds. And we're love looking at the hummingbirds come by. How many hummingbirds do you normally get?
Well, when they're traveling, and that's when I can take most of them, we get around 20 or 30. That's
Yeah,
when they're migrating. But during the season itself, it's usually 4 to 6, and I can't get very many good pictures because they too skittish.
yeah,
But when it's a whole bunch of them, there's fighting so much over the feeders
yeah.
that I can get closer to them. And I've actually, this was taken with the 400, but I can actually use my macro lens and get close to them
Wow.
when there's 20 or more.
Yeah, is this again natural light? Are you shooting
Oh,
natural
yeah,
light?
natural light, yeah.
Have you ever tried to use flash to maybe stop the wings a
Yes,
little bit more?
and I don't like the way it comes out. For
Oh,
one
okay.
thing, their eyes always look terrible, and I don't
Hmm.
know how to work in Photoshop with the eyes. And
Yeah.
it just gives it an unnatural, I don't like the look of it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that looks good. The wings don't have to be perfectly still because it shows the motion.
Sometimes you will find that they're kind of still on some of the shots because the light was so bright and I upped the ISO, especially now that I have the D90.
Yeah.
I can really up the ISO, and if I have bright light, I can really get a fast shutter speed so I can get the wing stopped.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny because he was sleeping. It was a young bird, a young mockingbird
Yeah.
on one
On
foot.
one foot, you can see his eyes are pretty well closed. Yeah.
When they rest on one foot.
Now you do something else that I normally don't do, and that is you do a lot of cropping of your images.
Yes, I'm bad about that.
So I mean, it's not necessarily wrong to crop your images. You get your images into what you want it to be, and you reduce those things. But if you crop it too much, of course, now you don't have enough data to print. But
Yeah,
you're a lot like me in that you rarely print anything,
yeah.
so that may not be an issue. Um, and if you can't get close enough with the lens, sometimes that's the only way to go is to end up cropping it. Do you know if this one was cropped?
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
Okay. Oh yeah, that one's gorgeous. That one,
And that one's cropped.
yeah. I mean,
Almost
that's
all my images are cropped.
well, it's my feeling with photography. Since I'm not a photojournalist, is that it's art, and however I want to do it is part of the art. There's a debate on, some people are purist and say whatever comes out of the camera is what you got. Um, I'm not a photojournalist, so I can make any edits I want to. Part of the process is the Photoshop process, and I'm more concerned with the end result. So cropping is not necessarily bad. The only reason I was against it is because back when I was shooting soccer, is if you ended up cropping an image and then a parent wanted a 16 by 20, you cropped it down to the 30% of the frame, that's not going to hold up when you go to blow it up. And I guess some of that just carries over,
Yeah.
with me to try and frame it right to begin with and then not do much cropping. But I'm starting to lose a little bit of that, and I'll crop a little more. You're looking at it here, this is perfectly fine. I mean, you probably cropped out what we didn't want to see anyway.
What I didn't want to see
Yeah.
because usually my stuff is just zeroing in on one thing that I think is pretty
Yeah.
or creative or, you
Yeah.
know.
Let's keep going back to flower.
I love taking pictures of animals. They're so fun, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Especially squirrels can be very entertaining to take pictures of.
Yes. Yeah. And I like close-ups to go into a flower, you
Well,
know.
and I don't know if we have any coming up, but one of the things that you do a good job at is more of abstract photos. You know, taking things of things I would have never thought of taking a picture of. You know, you take pictures of slinkies and that kind of stuff,
Oh,
and you do it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily know it's a slinky, but this is sort of an abstract image where you're taking a picture of a flower, and all the I guess whatever that's called coming out of the center of the
yeah.
flower, and all these as we keep going through these, all these show that you don't have to travel to an exotic place to take photos.
Just your
These
own
are
yard.
all right there in your own yard.
Yes.
There's things in your own yard if you just look at them differently. Sometimes it may mean you need a macro lens, but most macro lenses are not that expensive. And it's good to have a macro lens in your collection of lenses.
Yeah. I just would like to get a macro lens that's vibration reduction.
Yeah. Now I would imagine this one you helped out a little bit.
I did. I set up with the black cloth.
Yes.
You know.
So, but that's a fairly easy thing to do. Is you just put a black cloth behind the flower, right?
Right.
And
A
that
little distance away.
yeah, but that got rid of all the distractions behind it and let that yellow of the
Shine. Right.
flower shine through.
To be my main focus.
Yeah.
Right. I think later we'll see like the feather and the marble. I believe I put some of those and maybe one with the slinky.
Okay. We got somebody saying the audio's going in and out. Say something, Mom.
Hello, I'm still here. Are you able to hear me out there?
Yeah, it looks like from this end it's going good. I don't know. Maybe when you're talking is more worried about the mic because we're not showing each other on the camera right
Okay.
now. And there's a blue jay.
With squawking.
Yeah.
Blue jays are famous for squawking, letting you know they're coming. And I just love this one because doves travel in pairs, the mates. And the way they were both facing each other, it's one of the pictures that I like because of that.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorites.
This one is?
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the finches. It was early in the morning. It was like at the beginning of January. It was like welcoming in the new year.
Yeah.
And I just like that early morning light on this little finch because they only pass through when they're migrating. So I only see them in our winter months, when they're fixing to wait for spring to go back up north.
Okay. Let me check something else. Okay. Because here's another Hummer picture where you got them coming, getting them.
See, the wings are kind of stopped on that
Yeah,
one.
the wings were fairly well stopped. So you must have had a really good shutter speed on that one.
Yeah, evidently.
And Rogue Wave, if your audio keeps going in and out, let us know if it's us. I don't know if it's us or if it's you. All right, here we're getting to some of the abstract stuff. This is what I was looking at. And I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit more on this. So tell us a little bit about this shot.
It's a marble on a feather on a glass top table. And the background, I wanted some color to it. So I had an Easter flag, the kind you put on your front porch or something. So it has the soft Easter colors, the pink and the green. So I put that as my background. But I wanted it on the glass table. So I set all this up on my patio outside in the back. And I got this inspiration from somebody on one of the photo groups. She does a lot of these abstract photos, and I just thought they were so beautiful, and so I wanted to create some myself. The hard thing is watching the reflections
Of yourself?
in the marble.
Mhm.
It'll pick up, like if you're outside, it'll pick up the sky image, or if you're in the house, it'll pick up if you have
So how did you stop it?
you just have to keep. Sometimes you have to Photoshop it out.
Or maybe it's the angle you're at too?
Right. And this is just done in Photoshop. It's two different pictures, meld together.
So you took a picture of some music and a picture of
My auto harp.
auto harp,
Right.
and just blend them together in Photoshop.
Right. You make the opacity,
Yep.
you know, in
Opacity.
Photoshop,
Yep.
you know.
Make them 2 layers and then change the opacity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is just the chords, zeroing in on just the chords of the auto harp.
Now, did you use a flash here?
No, this is just natural light. I
So
try
how'd you
to
get
avoid.
how'd you get everything to be so black behind it and it
I might have photoshopped that out. It's been so long ago because I did that on the kitchen table in the breakfast area. And so we get a lot of light from that bay window.
well, the lighting looks great. I mean, the white chords come through really good on that black
Yeah.
thing. That looks really good.
So it's probably has some photoshopping done to it.
Yeah, but that's part of it. I mean, like we said before, it's the art. All right, I need to expand down a little bit.
Can you tell what that is?
Let's see. I would guess that is a marble in a book.
Yeah, that's right. If you can see the black writing a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of like in the middle of the page or something. I just like the look of it.
And this goes back to, these are things that you could do in your house yourself. You don't have to,
That's where I did them. I just get by a window that has a lot of light.
Yeah.
And I probably put a blue vase behind the book. That's why you see blue in the background. I have a blue vase that you put flowers in.
Yeah.
It's a glass vase.
Very good.
So that's where that comes from.
Steven saying nice. Now, Steven, you saying nice to the book one or the one prior to that? While we're waiting for him, we'll go to the next one.
Well, thank you for saying it's nice.
And here's another hummingbird. And you got his wings pretty well stopped
Right.
too.
Evidently, I probably had 3,000 to 4,000 shutter speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll usually, stop them.
Well, I also like this one, how his back tail feathers are so spread out.
Right. And this is a female. And
female.
they're in fighting mode. That's, that's what I'm getting. And they're fighting each other. The white tips on her tail show that she's a female. And plus, she doesn't have the red throat.
Okay.
That's a male. He has the red throat. And I don't know whether he was fighting with her particularly, but they all fight each other to get to the feeder. And here you could see that it's like a torpedo coming in. They're so much fun to watch, but they're so fast. They're a real challenge.
Well, and that's going to be my next question. So they are very fast. How do you get focus on them?
It's very difficult. You just keep trying and trying, and you just keep ready and you're just aiming. What's really hard is you're holding this heavy camera and, with that big lens.
Yeah.
And you can only do it for so long. Now, I can't tell you for sure whether I took this with the 400 or the macro. Because when they are fighting like this, that's when I have a big group and I can get somewhat closer to them. And of course, this is cropped because they're further away from me. So there's a possibility that I did this with the macro.
Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on, you got a lot of nice hummingbirds, and hopefully she's going to add some of these to our jpeg2RAW group on Flickr. So if you wanted to go and look at any of these, you can go look at them. But she is a member of the Flickr group, and you can go and look for, Grandma Cheryl 38 or something like that is your name in the Flickr group. So if you go to our Flickr group, jpeg2RAW Flickr group, she's a member, and you can go and look at some of her photos. Here, I want to get some more of the abstract ones, if there are any.
I don't know, because the hummingbirds might be the last.
Oh, okay, because you have a lot of good hummingbird photos. And speaking of that, didn't you just recently win something because of your hummingbird photos?
Well, they won't be probably familiar with Smilebox. I like to take my photos and make slideshows out of them and put music to it. and I belong to Smile Box. I, pay a yearly fee, and I won one of my slideshows. Won slideshow of the week.
Okay, and it was of hummingbirds.
Yes, it was hummingbirds. But that's what's I like to do the most is take my photos, put them on a slideshow with music.
Yeah.
Whether it's flowers or a mixture of flowers and birds or what have you. And that's what I like to do most because I don't develop my pictures or I just do it for my own pleasure. And then when I make a slideshow, I send it to my friends and family members.
So, you've taken a lot of my advice over the years, and in some ways we've been inspiration for each other. But some of the things I've never been able to convince you of is Lightroom and shooting in RAW.
Right.
Because you are still JPEG and you do the storage of your files the old-fashioned way using Windows Explorer.
Big mess.
And it is a big mess. And I imagine even your backup strategy is not
good.
all that good.
No.
I did try and set up a Windows Home server for you, and that has helped a little bit, but right now y'all don't have it running.
Right.
But all that said, you still end up with quite a few nice images, and you take a lot of photos. Or you go through spurts,
right?
Where you're taking a lot of photos. So, any idea how many photos you might take in a year or something like that?
Oh, not really.
Of course, if you had Lightroom, you'd know. But
yes. Because there are times when I've taken several thousand in a month.
Yeah.
But like you said, I go through spurts of it, and just depending on my health and how I feel.
Right.
And then sometimes you just don't feel inspired, and because the majority of my pictures are taken in my yard, I don't always have flowers to take,
Or the hummingbirds flying through. Yeah.
And because I've taken so many bird pictures, it's like old and it's not as much fun.
Right.
And my hands are not as steady and.
Yeah, I mean that's all. I think that's a challenge for any photographer after taking photos for a while, is how to find inspiration. I think in your case, you have taken so many thousands of images in your own yard, and not just of birds, but of all kind of different things, that it probably is getting somewhat difficult to find new, creative things. For me, I have not taken thousands of images in the yard, and I probably haven't used my macro lens in a couple of years. So there's really a lot of stuff for me to still take pictures of. Right now, I'm more into HDR,
right.
Which I know I haven't got you on that either yet.
Right.
But for your subjects, it probably would not work. If you're taking photos of hummingbirds or other things like that, what just happened to our live stream? You guys still getting something out there in live stream?
The picture came back on.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Is anybody there? Or have they all gone?
I don't know. I think Steven's still there.
Are you there, Steven?
Yeah, Steven's there. Yeah, still here. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. We just blacked out. I know I can see the computer's working pretty hard, but I think that's something to think about for somebody is finding inspiration and right around their own place. And if you got a macro lens, that really helps out. I think it was Rachel Brinke who was on a few weeks back, and who we have coming up pretty soon too, had asked, hey, I'm looking for inspiration. Anybody have any ideas? And my idea was buy a new lens. And yeah, I mean, you can't use that inspiration all the time or you'll be broke. But a lot of times when you buy a new lens, and I think if I remember right, Steven got a new lens or a new camera recently, that is, opens up a whole new avenue of taking photos, a whole new angle. If you didn't have a macro lens, you go buy one. Wow, there's all kind of things you can take photos of now that you weren't able to take photos before, and that helps out with some inspiration. Now you're getting back into using your 50, which your 50 millimeter,
Yeah.
which you weren't using before, and now you're really liking that 50, and that helps inspire you a little bit.
What it showed, I've never been one to take landscape or people pictures. Besides the kids, my grandkids, when you have family members in. But to take pictures of other people, I've never really been interested in that.
Right.
But because I belong to line dancing group, I took my 50, lens to the line dance class.
Yeah.
And because you can, it's 1.8, I could bump up my ISO really high and be indoors and took the pictures. And I was really excited. And then I stopped at this antique country store
Yeah.
and took pictures there with the 50 millimeter. So that gave me something else to take pictures of. And then it kind of inspired me. And how I got inspired to use my lens that had been sitting there forever is from your show.
Oh, great.
You were talking to one of the girls or somebody about your 50 millimeter and the importance of it. And so I got mine out.
Yeah, if like I've said many times, the 50 is one of the exceptions to the rule that you need to spend a lot of money. And I'm talking about the 51.8.
Right.
Where you got to spend a lot of money to get a good quality lens. I mean, it's about $100, and it's an f1.8, and it's a really good. The image quality is really good from that lens. I mean, if you could spend a little bit more, the 51.4 is really good too. But at $100, that's hard to beat. Now, I just picked up one recently that I was telling you about, the 35 millimeter 1.8, and that one is more expensive. It's about $200.
Well, that's not
but
bad.
but not bad in
Right.
terms of lenses. When you're looking at buying lenses, you're talking usually multiple hundreds, if not thousands, for a good quality lens. So $200 in a lens is not that bad, but that I'm loving that 35 millimeter, and I think that's the one. If you think back a few shows, Morgan was using, she used it for everything.
Oh.
Now I'm not going to use it for everything, but it is a really nice lens to have in my collection. I'm really enjoying that lens, and it's making me want to take photos with that lens.
And one of the reasons I like it is that it gives me the blurred background
The 50,
that I
yeah.
like so much.
Yeah. Now I think you still, part of the blurred background happens from your distance to the subject. So with the 50, if you're too far back, there's going to be more
Oh,
of it in focus. So
That's true.
yeah, so it's just not only the 1.8, but it's your distance to the subject. So if you get close enough, you blur the background better.
And that's what I'm going to do because
Right.
I want to close.
You want
I
to
want close-up shots.
Right, right. Well, we've been going now for a little while. I don't want to keep us here too long because I know we got a house full of people who are wondering when we're coming back up. We appreciate everybody coming out for this odd time of jpeg2RAW, but we wanted to get some kind of show in this week. And I definitely appreciate my special guest tonight for coming to the show. It's a little chaotic before the show, getting things set up and everything, but we finally got one off. So any closing words there, Mom?
Oh, I just want to thank everybody that is out there listening and let them know how much I appreciate my son, Michael, and how much of an inspiration he is and how much help he is. Because every time I have any problem on the computer or my camera, I call him up and he helps me out.
That's one of the things. As soon as we're done with this, I got to start working on my sister's computer and getting them ready to go as they travel tomorrow back home. But thank you for all the compliments. If anybody out there listening, if you haven't gone and subscribed to the show yet, you can go through our website and subscribe to the show. You can go to iTunes and leave a comment. I think Stephen has done that recently. Thank you very much, Stephen. I saw that you left a comment out there. That's very much appreciated. Coming up, I think this week we have Morgan coming back.
Good.
We have Rachel coming back fairly soon. And with Rachel coming back, and I guess I'll make the announcement now. We haven't made an announcement anywhere else, but we'll start publicizing it pretty soon. Rachel is donating one of her workshops to the show for us to give away. So we're going to give away one of Rachel's workshops, which, depending on which one it is, it could be as much as $100 value that we're going to be giving away on the show when Rachel's on. And there's going to be some requirements. You're going to have to do something for us, but they'll be simple. They'll be simple things to do. And we will publicize what those things are, have a website set up where you can go and log in what things you did, and then we'll be giving those away. And I believe we may be also having a special guest host come in to join us in the future too. Be Tim and I. Tim and I will be back next week, and then we may be, maybe not next week, but the week after, we may be having a special guest host that may be making more appearances over time. So, keep tuning in. We should be back to regular time next week, Tuesday, 8 o'clock. And that'll be a wrap for tonight. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.